All right, please welcome now the Imus Morning Program from Wisconsin, Senator Ron Johnson. Good morning, Senator Johnson.
Morning, Don. Thanks for having me on.
Well, you're quite welcome. You know, I'm always suspicious when somebody wants to be on. Usually when we call and invite people, they try to figure out some way to get out of being on and not incur our wrath so that we say icky stuff about them. But
No, trust me, I know this is kind of a dangerous hit here, but I'm willing to take the chance, I guess.
Well, I think you're going to be fine. So, well, what's going on in this? Let's start with the debt ceiling debate. Where are you on that?
Well, obviously, you know it's a mess. The John Boehner plan kind of crashed and burned here yesterday when the CBO finally scored it and people started realizing that it's only cutting, according to the CBO, about $5 billion in the first year. And, what drives me nuts, Don, is nobody really talks about real numbers in this town. They're talking about cuts off a baseline. They're really not cuts. They're just reducing the rate of growth. And, if you're really serious about cutting, let's say, $1 trillion, you better be cutting about $100 billion in the first year, because that's the only way you lower the baseline to actually get a credible $1 trillion cut over the long term. And so that's kind of what happened, I think, with the Boehner plan. And, the other thing, Don, is I just don't really believe that the political class here has come to grips really with the 2010 election and with the folks like myself that came, kind of sprung out of the Tea Party, that came here. I know the media template is we're a bunch of crazies, but we're not, Don. We're patriots. We love this country. We realize that we are bankrupting America, and we're just trying to come to this town trying to figure out what is pulling off and how can we fix it. And, we're very sincere in our attempt to do that.
I'm not a Tea Party guy, but when I woke up about the Tea Party, it was like, you see these wackos with goofy hats on at these demonstrations, and that's true of any party. But what woke me up is I got to thinking about it. I said, well, wait a minute. I'm for a lot of stuff they're for, and I'm not a member of the Tea Party, but maybe they're onto something here.
Well, first of all, Don, I'm not a member of the Tea Party either. I'm just one of these guys that they asked me to give a speech at a Tea Party, and so I did, back during the health care debate. And, as I ran for election, I only started this 6 months before the November 2010 election. And as you go talk to groups of people, and you talk about, how you realize how precious America is and how we're bankrupting, when people come up to you after those speeches, and trust me, I'm no great orator, but people come up to me, and I'd say 95% of the people will say, God bless you for running. You're in our prayers. There'd be people with tears in their eyes because they love this country. And there'd also be people putting their finger in your chest, and they'd say, don't you change. Don't you let Washington change you. And, again, that's what you have in a freshman class. We all went through that same experience. We all saw the passion in the American people about trying to save this country. And that's why we're trying to hold the line here. That's why we're trying to stand our ground, because all these cuts that people are talking about, they're fictional. They're not real. And we're just trying to hold the politicians here in Washington accountable. We're trying to make sure that, all these plans are actually real. And currently, I don't see a real plan on the table.
This plan, this Boehner plan, that's going to be reworked. I was going to ask you if you would support that, but I guess you don't know until it's been reworked, right?
Well, that's the problem. And what's been happening over the last number of months here, you've got a couple individuals, they've been negotiating behind closed doors. The president finally got engaged 4 weeks ago. Nobody, I certainly don't know what those plans are. I certainly don't understand the detail. Let's face it, we're talking about a $3.7 trillion a year budget. Another way of putting that down, $3.7 million large. And that's how big the federal government is. And you're going to get a couple individuals negotiating that behind closed doors. It is absurd. It's ridiculous. And so, how can they expect anybody to comprehend that? How can they expect anybody to take a look at that and in a couple of days decide whether or not they're going to vote for it or not?
Talking with Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, are you willing to, if it comes to it, let us default on our obligations?
No, I don't want to do that. And I think what's probably going to happen is some sort of short-term deal so that we can actually debate a real solution. And, and honestly, there is a real solution out there. It is called cut, cap, and balance. It hasn't gotten a whole lot of play. Because these negotiations pretty well sucked all the air out of the room, we weren't able to really put this on the table until last week. So it is a very reasonable proposal, Don. If we're going to fix this problem, we're going to have to first cut first-year spending. You just have to do it. If you're going to get $1 trillion worth of cuts, you better cut $100 billion this year. It's the only way it's credible. Then what we need to do is we need to cap the increase, the rate of growth in spending. We're not talking about cutting spending. We're talking about just limiting the growth in spending. We have to do that statutorily. And I think if we're actually going to ever solve this problem, we have to have a constitutional amendment that limits the size of government and leads to a balanced budget. I don't ever see the political will in this town to prevent bankrupting America without that type of constitutional limitation.
See, the Democrats, though, they're saying, as you obviously know, that you guys don't want to raise taxes on the people flying around in the private jets, and don't we hate those people? And that they do, but you're saying that even the cuts that are being proposed, not only by the president but by the Republicans, are not real. Is that fundamentally what you're saying?
What's your concern? I mean, if you're talking about cutting, if you're projecting a cut 10 years out, where's the fiscal discipline? How do you have any guarantee that's going to happen? Now, if you actually cut $100 billion this year, that lowers the baseline. And so you can project out, if you cut $100 billion this year times 10, that will probably get you $1 trillion worth of cuts. That's a real cut. But if you're only talking about cutting $5 billion this year and then saying, well, yeah, in year 10 we're going to cut $1 trillion, it's simply not believable. And it would never be enforced. So, no, we have to put hard spending caps, a fiscal discipline, straitjacket, I don't care what you call it. We have to instill that fiscal discipline first before we can ever expect these politicians in Washington to start prioritizing spending.
And taxing rich people, that's out.
I mean, here's the problem with increasing taxes. No matter what tax increase you're talking about, you tell me how many jobs that tax increase is going to create.
Oh, I heard.
I mean, it just doesn't. The number one component of a solution here is economic growth. And, Don, I'm a small business guy. I mean, I hate special tax deals. I mean, I never lobbied for any. I wasn't getting any.
You got emotional on me here.
And I tell you what, most people in town here are happy to take a look at real tax loopholes and close them. But generally a lot of, you know what I'm saying? So people do want to do tax reform, but we're not going to get that in time to handle this debt ceiling.
So in conclusion, you think there'll be a deal, even if it's just short term, somehow we'll get through this?
Yeah, that'd be my guess.
No.
And I wouldn't be opposed to that so that we can actually get cut, cap, and balance a fair hearing because, 66% of American people already say they support cut, cap, and balance. 74% want a constitutional amendment to limit the size of government. I think that's a pretty good place to start from. It's a pretty reasonable proposal. And in the end, if we pass a constitutional amendment, we're just sending it to the states. We'll let the American people decide if they want to put that fiscal discipline on Washington. I think in the end, if you give them that choice, they'll choose to instill that fiscal discipline.
Well, it may just be me, Senator, but you don't sound totally crazy to me. So, anyway, thank you very much, Senator Ron Johnson, Wisconsin.